Okay, so thanks for joining today, man. Yeah, we're doing just kind of like these quick
Quick.
interviews. We're trying to keep them to 30 minutes. Call them fireside chats, and mainly just trying to get the different perspectives on how people are using AI, how it's changing the field they work in, how they're adapting, and things like that. Well, we've done I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 of them so far, and it's really interesting just hearing different perspectives. We've got people from like ranging from developers, to project managers to um, like an SEO person and content creators and product builders and just advertising authors. So we're just trying to like just see how people are using it, and sometimes it may be just like I use ChatGPT. Sometimes it's like, oh, I'm running this whole infrastructure and or running a local system or whatever it is, so they're just kind of some basic questions, um, and we're just trying to catch other people's perspective. And then what we do with the recording is we summarize it and we kind of churn through it, spit out some content, some blog posts, some like YouTube cards, some deep dive, like further research opportunities. But and to be fair, a lot of it is pretty sloppy right now. But it's giving us a surface area to test a lot of stuff, and also it's helping us inform our strategy as an agency. So
Yeah.
that's kind of our positioning here.
Yeah, makes sense. Glad to talk through what I've seen, and hopefully, I guess, yeah, I'm always looking to learn, so I'll check out whatever sort of content you guys are putting out. Are you putting out that stuff publicly, like you said?
Yeah, it is public, and each session has a little bit of content attached to it. I think it'll become really interesting when we kind of get through this month, and then we kind of start synthesizing all the things together and looking for the through lines and finding some new interesting kind of things to deep dive on.
Right on.
But I'll
Yeah.
definitely share that with you. And
Sweet.
as far as if it's public, we are recording, but and we're throwing things up on our RaidGuild YouTube. If you don't want the interview recording up there, that's fine. Just let me know. Uh,
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just like summaries and stuff.
Yeah. Cool.
Cool. Well, first off, thanks for joining, Graven, and maybe we could start with a little introduction.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, know most of you guys, or a couple of you guys for a long time now. Been in crypto since full time since 2019. Always been an independent builder focused on kind of public goods, open source, kind of radical market type ideas. Have started a couple projects with kind of small teams, always focused on kind of just exploring and doing funky, fun stuff. I am personally more of like kind of a product manager or something along that line. I'm not a developer, but have been working with developers basically my entire career, kind of managing that. And so I'm technical-ish. And I guess we'll probably get into how that's changed with using AI, what that means for like my role and what I've done. Most recently, I was working on Flow State. We are doing streaming funding with Superfluid, trying to use programmable money streams to move money around more effectively, focused on public goods. I am kind of actually this is I've been we were partnered with Octant and doing a lot of stuff with them. They're a big public goods funder. More recently, I've taken on a full-time role with Octant, focused on kind of kind of just getting started there, but helping roll out their V2 protocol, engaging builders, grantees, and trying to create a community of builders around that protocol.
Yeah, interesting. So you mentioned, uh, being a product manager. Um, how has that changed? Yeah, you mentioned that you're maybe getting more into some more dev stuff, but how has it changed with AI being around?
Yeah, and it's evolved. I guess maybe since late last year is when it really started taking off for me with kind of actually like kind of proper harness agent sort of stuff with Claude Code. Um, Initially like started off trying to build up like a whole bunch of stuff, excitement, just like fucking around, finding out, see what happens. I think it's settled into a less aggressive, like me trying to, like I'm still building stuff and shipping code in a way that never would have been possible for me unless I sat down and taught myself like Solidity or whatever. Um, and so that's continued, but I think I've settled into a role where it's like I still like working like I've worked with some of you even before, like smaller teams. Um, Find an opportunity, define like how we're going to attack it, create a design, and iterate through with like a single developer, a very small team to go try to build that. AI has changed that in terms of the speed of and maybe the ambition of what we can take on. I don't think that's news to anyone here. And I like I said, I contribute some code to that and like can like feel good about like maybe being less annoying as like a perfectionist or something like that. Where I can like if something just like slightly needs to change, like confidently can make those changes. Um, and in personal projects and like in exploration, I'll take something from start to finish, but I've settled into like still working with like a technical partner that's going to have a little bit more like depth of understanding and help architect the system in a way that's not just going, I don't know, not going to fall into a trap of thinking an MVP is production ready or something that like you one shot is now like ready to hold like funds, contract funds, or anything like that. Um, so uh, yeah, I guess, and then in my role with like Octant, I've been doing a lot of work. I mean, researching code bases, using that as like using Cloud Code, yeah, like in the context there of like a GitHub repo to really dive in deeper and expand my like one catch up on things that were built prior to me being around, and really interrogate like what's going on, how does this full system work, building a lot of diagrams and things like that, using Cloud Code.
Yeah, that seems like a really good, uh, well, a great use case is like reviewing code and really understanding what it does, and um, downloading that history a little quicker instead of spending months at it just to try to synthesize something. There's a few things I
Yeah.
wanted to dive into with what you were saying there. So it sounds like you're mainly using Cloud Code. Are you using it kind of in the context of the Cloud Code app? Um, are you using other things like Cursor or VS Code integrations, or things like OpenClaw, or anything like that?
I when the first hype cycle of OpenClaw came, I set one up and messed around a little bit on that, but haven't really used that in my to day work. My usual setup is Claude Code in a terminal. I keep kind of GitHub desktop side by side with it, and just kind of work through that. I do have like I guess like outside, it still work stuff, but then I will like on my mobile I use Claude typically. for like the normal chatbot sort of
Uh-huh.
stuff. Um,
Are you
I guess I
using
could say I
GitHub
go ahead.
Copilot too, or?
No GitHub Copilot to date. So I do have then also like I've experimented with Codex a little bit and have like an OpenAI subscription um, through the company that I'm working with. So try to like I don't know if there's something where I feel like I want to kind of compare and contrast. I'll use those two. Um, I've
Yeah.
tried Gemini in the past, never really liked any of the results, so it's never stuck. It's never felt like it. I don't know. Even when the like, I can't even remember the model numbers, but like when Gemini whatever came out and it was the biggest baddest model, I tried using it for some stuff and it was just never really. It maybe it had all the parameters in the world, but didn't seem to have the context, the harness that made it useful
Yeah,
or the
I was asking
post
about
training.
Copilot because, well, GitHub or Git in general, there's just it's kind of one of those tools that always sits outside. Everyone knows the surface how to use it, but it's actually pretty powerful. And once you give it to a an agent, then is creating work trees and managing merges, and it's pretty interesting. But anyways, and Copilot has just like a deep integration with GitHub, which is sometimes nice. Anyways, I'm diverging. The other thing that I thought was interesting is your role as a product manager and product owner kind of person. I mean, one of your main things is you're working with a lot of people, diverse skills, um, across dev, design, product, all the things. And so yeah, I was just wondering about those relationships. How is it working with other engineers that are also using AI a lot? Like, has that changed? How do you collaborate and coordinate on things? What's that looking like?
Yeah, yeah. Like at Flow State and like I worked with my partner there, Stefano, for a long time, and so we have like a deep relationship. And I think we've always kind of worked maybe differently than like I mean, we weren't running sprints or like doing a whole bunch of like kind of project management stuff. When it's two people, you can kind of mind meld in a different way and keep it light. And that's always been my bias. Like I've done the product manager stuff, but then in all these other ventures, I've always had to do everything else too. So I guess yeah, I've always kind of had a like a hands-off approach to kind of like in managing and working with like the developers that I work with. Um, I said earlier, it's definitely changed the speed of iteration and the ambition of what we can do and it changed. So I guess I'd say it changed the bottleneck of what we were doing. All of a sudden, like when Stefano was creating stuff, new features that would have taken like a week, then you knock that out overnight. Um, I was also the main tester, and so I ended up my workload of like testing the app, and especially like I mean when you ship fast and like you feel powerful, but like there's those rough edges and missing pieces, and like maybe a business logic thing wasn't there. So I ended up I remember like earlier this year, I was spending like all day testing. I was like just a tester to just make sure that the product that went out the door was like what I envisioned. And maybe that was like a result of not specking it enough up front, and there's trade-offs there. What we ended up doing with that process, like started saying, well, like what can agents do for us to like loosen up the bottleneck on testing and documentation and all those sorts of things. So really started developing both skills and kind of like our own harness and stuff to help alleviate kind of different bottlenecks in now like the shipping process, so that like we're not that my time wasn't just overrun being a tester.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that process, like just like taking a step back and acknowledging that the bottlenecks in software development have completely changed, um, is like an ongoing one, and like changes what like where value is created in that pipeline, where you can add skill. Because if everyone can, well, when we all get Fable 5 again or whatever, um, like then that becomes kind of table stakes. Well, I don't, there's still plenty of people that aren't on the leading edge here, but it changes like all of a sudden your taste, your like decision making on where and what you go after obviously becomes more important, distribution, and those are the sorts of things that I'm kind of thinking through now as like where we all go.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, the adapting the process is really interesting. Have you had issues with like scope creep? Like everything's possible now, so let's just do everything. Or have you noticed that you've had to have a little stronger arm and been like, no, we got to go this direction for now, and things like that?
Yeah. Um, just thinking back earlier in the year, like when this really started taking off for us, we were actually in a position where like we had like a customer that wanted some new features, and we were kind of like slow rolling it, like because we didn't really know, we hadn't like fully like internalized, and so maybe we were being cautious there, but like all of a sudden we could add all the things that they asked for, and it was actually like necessary things that like were on a deadline that would have been impossible previously, but allowed us to, they said, can you jump this high, and we said, yeah, sure, let's do it. um, that then swung too far the other direction, where anytime you have a client that's just like, well, could you do this and could you do this, and if the answer is always, well, yes, we could, but should we definitely had to like dial that back a little bit and just say like we like what's the advantage here, like what are you actually gaining through this.
For sure.
So yeah.
You mentioned,
um
quickly, just you mentioned some skills and processes and some new like harness and infrastructure that you're using. Can you dive into some of those real quick, just high level?
Yeah, so I guess like kind of through the pipeline did like a spec writing, tech eval, like feasibility, like kind of just built out a skill for each of those steps. Or, and when I say we, it's loosely we. It's like I was working with Stefano to kind of define those things, and he definitely pushed that forward. And so that was kind of like tailored to things, how we work, the tools that we have, the like for flow state, the things that we were focused on stylistically, and all that sort of stuff. And that's continued to evolve. I guess also, I don't know, other skills, like I love the Excalibur MCP skill. Like I use that like, or MCP all the time. Um,
Ooh, I gotta try that
like
one.
I mentioned, diagramming and like that sort of thing. It just like I was a big Excalibur user before. That's where I just mock, like in my multi-hat role, I would just like create wireframes in Excalibur. I haven't really done wireframing in there, but definitely diagramming has been great. I have tried Claude Design, a little bit. Hasn't necessarily like, I don't know, blown me away or anything like that. Um, so I definitely think actually like design and front end stuff is like the um, biggest
Still
part
growth,
of
yeah.
kind of like building that doesn't feel like it doesn't always wow me.
Yeah,
Yes, you can create something, but it's gonna have rough edges, and it's just kind of like yeah, we all know that if you don't come up with a different design, it'll look like every other website out there, and it's like, yeah, a slop website can be spotted
Yeah.
from a million miles away.
I think one interesting thing is it surfaces some of the problems that happen in the code that you might not have cared about, because it's such like a literal interpretation of the back end sometimes. And so
Yeah.
you're like, oh, can I make a a view of this record from the database? And it's like, oh my god, why is there so much slop in my data model? You know, it almost like uh anyways, sometimes I've noticed that.
Yeah.
um well, are you using some of the features of cloud code, or in harnesses like tasks and automation workflows? Have you found use cases to like run something daily or check product metrics or things like that?
No, I honestly haven't yet.
Okay, so what other things are you still a little like hesitant with the AI? What still feels broken besides front end dev, um, and interface design? Are there other
Yeah.
things? I know you're working a lot with smart contracts and things like that. Is there are you starting to get higher confidence as we go?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely grown, and now more and more like the feature that gets talked about most is like how good uh, these bigger models are at security. Uh, and so I haven't shipped any smart contracts with like I've messed around and built some, but I just like I haven't gotten to the level where I would like say, yeah, like ship this as something that I've built. As I've worked with like obviously like different develop like Stefano and Sam, like uh I know that like using these tools to build smart contracts, but it's almost like I would want still like a professional developer to take a look. And maybe like at this point, like the models or Fable, when we get back access to that is going to be like obviously beyond the skill of mere mortals. But I would still kind of like I don't know. There's still I guess I'm just not there yet in terms of saying like, yeah, I vibe coded a smart contract and let's roll it out. Maybe something dead simple um, would 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 be fine, and you start there and build up to something that's more like of a system rather than just kind of like a standalone one function or whatever. But yeah, haven't built up that total confidence yet.
Um, One of the things you were mentioning with the skills you're making are kind of like some specking skills, and and you talked about managing scope. One of the things that I've noticed from some of the other talks and from other developers in the space is that it's hard to ship. So and you're working directly with a lot of clients. What tips have you found to like to actually get something shipped production ready, where you're not just dealing with mountains of slop or infinite new features and things like that?
Yeah, I guess we've always been pretty iterative, I think. And I think that helps a lot. Um, a lot of the work in the last, I'd say like 6, 7 months, there was already like a base there of something that we were building off of, and it was kind of like making enhancements for, say, a client. With Octant, there I guess there is a little bit like saying like I'm building things off a base that a team already they already built vaults. They built like kind of these different frameworks for like allocation mechanisms, and so it's going. You could maybe describe it as doing a lot more work from like 1 to 100 than 0 to 1. Um, in the 0 to 1 framework, I guess what we've done, we haven't shipped any of these as like production things, but like going from an idea and spinning up an MVP and like time boxing that to like a day or two and getting something that you can click around on and feel and kind of validate the idea is like super powerful. And like I look at that not as like a burden to like try to rein in by any means, but like previously, like I guess we would have maybe like debated and thought through and scoped and spent like way more time up front like validating, knowing that like the cost of actually like trying to ship that thing is orders of magnitude more. So I guess I kind of like have leaned into like, yeah, you can do a sloppy first version as like an internal demo at like validation, and then work from there in terms of like, well, if this deserves to go to production, maybe we got to tear it all down and start over, but now we have some lessons learned. So yeah, just leaning into iteration for me has always been like the best model.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of get. I think this was with anything. There's always been kind of like that, like flood, flood everything with as much content as possible, and do market validation that way, or do super quality content up front, and so it's kind of like quantity or quality kind of debate there, and the quality side is still, I think, very, it takes time, although we have some shortcuts, but there's some things that you just can't skip. you know
Yeah. Yeah. And it, like, I think there's a lot of like with AI, like a barbell, it creates a barbell effect in like multiple ways, and like how you approach your strategies. And like on the low end, throw a bunch of shit at the wall and not worry about it too much in terms of kind of like as a process. And then going like hyper handcrafted and like once you find your winner or something that you want to go after. And then I think that like changes kind of like structures of companies too, and like hyper like super big companies and super small ones, or teams, or um, whatever sort of organization you're creating.
yeah, and well, congratulations on your new role at Octane. What are you doing over there?
They're calling it DevRel, or builder relations, and I guess it's yeah, like trying to build a. I've been around in the space, kind of just like I don't know, always bottoms up builder, like public goods funding sort of stuff. So I know a lot of the kind of target audience of people that they want to try to see build on top of kind of their vaults and other kind of pieces of the protocol that are rolling out. So helping craft a strategy to like turn that protocol into something that people can build on and create like kind of sustainable businesses or operations around, and not just rely on grants. And so, yeah, it started pretty recently. So have been kind of getting up to speed on a few more things. We were working with them before, so it wasn't starting totally from zero, but hopefully be rolling out some of the stuff from this role and the impact and engagement here soon.
Excellent. Sam's wondering if the Timberwolves utilized AI to beat the Nuggets in the
I was just going to respond in text. I'm not good at
playoffs.
talking and typing, but obviously not. They just had to dump salary. They had to like Julius Randle's gone. So yes, we do have the Nuggets number, but I don't know. Maybe our days are numbered now that we're dumping salaries and having to trade draft picks to do it.
Nice. And Tay wants to know who you think's going to win the World Cup.
Hmm. It'd be boring to say like France because they've looked good. I originally picked Spain before the and that's not like a a pick that's way out there either. But I made that pick
Well,
prior.
that's a better answer than most people that are like, "Oh, that's going on." One last question because we're almost out of time. But do you think like, or what's your kind of take on where both product development and DevRel and other things that you're doing, AI in general, where do you think it's going to be in 6 months or a year? Do you think there's optimism in that, or is it pretty doomer?
A little of both. I like there's depends on which side of the bed I wake up on. In some ways, like the market is kind of coming to me and what I've always liked working. I've mentioned like working with like a small team and like not dealing with politics of of like a larger organization and like just the overhead that comes with trying to coordinate a lot of people. Um, and so, in some ways, like it very clearly can say, hey, like if you have a small team that kind of knows a direction and it's going to work together, like this is clearly like supercharging for that. On the other side, I also see that like uh, as soon as like I guess development isn't a bottleneck and it pushes it to other parts, like distribution becomes more and more valuable and like existing distribution channels and like owning customer eyes and advertising and a whole lot of things that I've never well I've actively kind of pushed against and not really been my vibe. Um, and so I guess it's again that barbell sort of thing. It's like there'll be opportunities for smaller teams that can move quickly, have different cost structures, and build stuff. And that's really exciting for someone that's entrepreneurial and has kind of been doing that. But there's obviously going to be a lot of upheaval, and it seems like the big players are also going to win a lot, and that creates I don't know. That is definitely not as exciting.
Yeah, that's the scary side. Well, thanks, Graven. Thanks for hopping on and just doing a quick chat with us. If you have anything you want to share, links to Flow State or your Farcaster or your X, I can try to dig them up. But if you got links, that would be helpful. Um, we are at the 30 minutes. If you got to drop, totally makes sense. Otherwise, the rest of us will probably just continue chatting a little if you want to hang.
Yep, I will hang and start dropping some links.
Cool. Tay just said, "How are you feeling about this bear compared to past ones?" So, crypto question.
It's definitely hitting harder, left and right. Like I guess the only like excitement in the world of like business or tech is all AI related. And so it's like 90% that and crypto maybe takes a back seat. And yeah, there's X402 and like there's a story to be told for agents using like crypto rails, but it doesn't feel as tangible in like the here and now for like a consumer level. It feels like everything's kind of stable coins, payment, institutional stuff. And maybe as a result of that adoption, there's opportunities for bottoms up builders and like different opportunities. But yeah, it definitely doesn't. This one feels harder than any other, at least in my opinion, currently.
Yeah, feels different to me. I think that's one of the reasons that RaidGuild, we had the bear market and then just kind of like a total, I guess, rug pull on any like experimentation and just interesting things happening in the space with the kind of institutionalization. So we're we're working to become a little more of RaidGuild.ai to expand our market into where there's still interesting things happening. But not to say
Yeah.
there's not interesting things. Octane, I'm sure, is still doing cool stuff like they always have been.
Yeah, I mean they're in a lucky position, and I'd be lying if I said part of my calculus in taking the full-time gig wasn't that they have a unique position in the market because of raising an ICO and the things that they've already done creates kind of a different platform and different opportunity to survive, thrive, and build through a bear to the other side where hopefully more opportunities bloom.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions they want to throw at Graven while he's here?
I was actually reminded to do the octants allocation yesterday, so I'll show that for you, Graven.
Yeah.
And we'll also say that the kind of the new design of octant is pretty sweet. I think some people commented they're like, this is kind of little raid guildy. So I don't know where the inspiration came from, but it's definitely like a lot smoother of a experience overall, and it also looks really cool.
Yeah, it looks really cool. I remember you guys put out that deck of like role playing cards that were really cool in the kind of wizard and warrior realm.
Yeah, there's definitely some overlap there and kind of thematic maybe, and that design and that brand kind of evolved in late V1 of Octant. This V2, there is a new designer. His name's Colin. He's great. He's worked on a lot of. He's been around for a while. Worked kind of. I think he was optimism and like been around public goods funding and crypto for a while, and built some apps and has like a understanding of what's actually going on behind the scenes and able to hopefully translate that into like something that's not just pretty but actually functional and kind of matches where users need it to be.
Okay, and so now I'll give you the chaser, Graven. I tried allocate. There's two kind of like, I don't know, maybe this is just me bitching a little, so you'll have to take it. Congrats on the role, by the way, Greg. That's actually super awesome. But hopefully, it's helpful criticism.
Yeah.
Because maybe this was some kind of user error, but I had, and again, the UX is very nice now. Like it's kind of impressive, especially like compared to like Gitcoin, like which the UX just never improved. But this is really nice. It looks good and it makes a fair amount of sense. But I still had like a couple of errors. Like I added a bunch of stuff to my ballot and I was like, this is cool. And then like it just lost them all, which was kind of annoying. Maybe again, a user error or whatever. Did it again. And then I was like, okay, great, ready to go. And then it was like, I don't know, it was like $4 on mainnet to like sign. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. So again, maybe another kind of error, but I was like, oh, this is annoying. So
Yeah. So definitely I won't go too deep into, but how it shouldn't have been $4 on mainnet unless it just happened to be at the wrong spike. And I know you've been around long enough to know that yeah, that happens. But how it's structured, you're not voting fully on chain. Basically, the only thing you need to do on chain is like almost like an ERC20 transfer, like level of gas, to basically commit your funds to a contract that then ingests like you're signing, which your vote, your ballot is actually run through like a ZK based system, not privacy, but for scaling, using SP1 from Succinct. So you sign an off chain ballot, and that goes through a sequencer sent to and then processed. So it's not totally off chain, but it is designed to hopefully have a better gas profile for your average user. But feedback heard, and I will, yeah, appreciate it, and yeah, iteration more to come.
Cool. Well,
I think that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Tay. Sorry. Didn't know if we were wrapping
No,
up.
no, and we're not recording anymore, I think. So this is just like a little personal feedback.